The wind howled through the alleyways as James clutched the last $10 bill in his worn wallet, debating between gas or groceries for his daughter. But just as he stepped into the corner diner, he saw her, thin, trembling, with 3 hungry children clinging to her coat, begging the cashier for scraps. Something about her eyes stopped him cold. He offered to help, thinking it was just a small act of kindness. But what she whispered to him over a shared cup of coffee would unravel everything he thought he knew about his past and change both their lives forever. He helped a stranger, but found someone who saw him for who he truly was, not for what he owned. What began as a fleeting act of kindness would set 2 broken hearts on a path neither of them expected. If you believe that kindness can still change lives, and that love often arrives when we least expect it, make sure to subscribe and stay with us through this unforgettable story. Because sometimes a simple ride leads straight to the heart. Single Dad's act of kindness uncovers shocking truth. You won't believe who she is. Comment where you're watching from before we begin. The sun dipped low over Main Street, stretching shadows across the pavement as William Patterson adjusted his old, worn tool belt. His rough hands, hardened from years of labor, moved swiftly as he picked up the last of his supplies from Grayson's general store. Money was tighter than ever this month, but he couldn't resist grabbing a small bag of candy near the counter. "This too," he told Martha Grayson, offering a rare smile. "Jackson earned it. Perfect attendance this quarter." Martha gave a warm nod. "That boy's something special, William. Sarah would be proud." At the mention of his late wife, a softness came over William's face. It had been 3 years since she passed, and though the pain had dulled, it still lingered. As William stepped into the cool October air, he noticed a woman standing near the corner of the building with 3 children huddled close to her. Their clothes hung loose, their eyes weary. William might have walked past, he had his own problems, but the youngest child's big, hungry blue eyes stopped him cold. "You all right, ma'am?" he asked gently. Startled, the woman pulled her children in. "We're fine," she said, though her voice trembled. William could see her hands shaking as she fussed with her daughter's messy hair. Pride kept her upright, but the desperation was unmistakable. "When did you last eat?" he asked softly. Her pride cracked. "Yesterday. We." Her voice faltered. Without thinking, William made a decision. "My house is just up that road. It's not much, but I've got soup on the stove and bread to spare. You're welcome to join us." She hesitated, wary. "Why would you help strangers?" He looked at the children's hopeful faces. "Because someone helped me once when Jackson and I needed it." He extended his hand. "William Patterson." After a pause, she took it, her grip firm despite her fragile frame. "Elizabeth Reynolds, and these are Emma, Alice, and Matthew." "Nice to meet you," William said kindly. "Now let's get that soup before it gets cold." As they walked to his modest home, William had no idea that this simple act of kindness would unravel secrets buried in his past, and that Elizabeth was tied to those secrets in ways that would shake his world. Inside, William's kitchen had never felt so alive. The old wooden table, usually just for him and Jackson, now hosted 5 hungry souls. The children devoured the soup, their manners briefly lost to real hunger. "Slow down," Elizabeth urged, though she was eating just as quickly. Tears glimmered in her eyes. A humble meal had touched her more deeply than he could have imagined. "Dad makes the best bread," Jackson said proudly to Emma. "Grandma taught him a secret." "What's the secret?" asked little Matthew, mouth half full. William grinned. "Can't tell. Patterson family mystery." Laughter filled the kitchen, melting the tension like snow in spring. After dinner, Jackson led the kids to his small room to show them his toys, offering to sleep on the couch so they could rest. William and Elizabeth remained in the quiet kitchen, sipping hot tea. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't know what this means." "No need for thanks," he replied. Elizabeth studied him. "People don't just help strangers anymore, especially a woman with 3 kids. Maple Creek's different," he said. "Or maybe I am." She smiled faintly. "Maybe both." Then, as if something had been building inside her, she began to speak. "We left in the middle of the night, 3 days ago. My husband, Richard, he's not who people think." William listened silently. "To the world, he's brilliant and charming. At home, he's a monster." Her grip on the mug tightened. "When he threatened the kids, I knew we had to go." You did the right thing, William said. Did I? We've got nothing, and he always finds what he wants. Then the name hit him like a punch. Richard Reynolds. The same man who'd once ruined William's career. You know him? Elizabeth asked, stunned. I worked for him, years ago, refused to approve unsafe shortcuts in his factories. He had me fired and blacklisted. Silence fell between them. Then, oh my God, Elizabeth murmured. Just then, a crash came from the living room. They rushed in to find Matthew beside a shattered photo frame, panic in his eyes. I'm sorry. It's okay, William said, kneeling beside him. Just glass. He carefully picked up the photo of Sarah, his late wife, and noticed how Matthew flinched when he moved toward him. It said everything. No one's going to hurt you here, William said gently. Later, once the kids were settled, Elizabeth joined William on the porch. They're scared of yelling, of mistakes. That's what he did to them. William's hands tightened on the railing. And to you? She nodded. The bruises fade. The rest doesn't. An owl called in the distance. He'll come looking, William said. We can leave tomorrow, Elizabeth replied. I won't bring his rage here. That's not what I meant. He turned to her. You're safe here. Stay, at least until you figure out your next steps. Why would you risk that, especially knowing who he is? William thought of Jackson, the children, his past with Richard, because some things are worth standing up for. Or maybe I'm just stubborn. A smile touched her lips, the first real one. My mother would call that righteous foolishness. My dad would have agreed, William chuckled. They stood in silence, fireflies blinking in the dark, unaware that something powerful had already begun between them, something stronger than Richard Reynolds's money or threats. A bond forged in shared pain, courage, and the simple act of kindness. Inside, the children slept deeply, safe for the first time in months. Sorry, William said quickly, kneeling beside the frightened boy whose small frame had started to tremble. It's okay. It's just glass. He gently picked up the shattered picture of his late wife Sarah, her joyful smile forever frozen in their wedding photo. When William reached toward the boy, Matthew flinched, a silent but telling reaction. No one's going to hurt you here, William assured him gently, his words meant for both Matthew and Elizabeth, whose face showed visible pain. As William swept up the shards, Elizabeth wrapped Matthew in her arms, whispering comforting words. The other children lingered in the doorway, watching nervously, habits shaped by fear. Later, once Elizabeth had tucked the kids into Jackson's room, with Jackson cheerfully agreeing to take the couch, she found William on the porch, looking up at the stars. They're scared of yelling, she said softly, joining him, of quick movements, of doing something wrong. Her voice cracked. That's what he did to them. William's hands tightened on the railing. And to you? He asked. The bruises go away, she whispered. It's the deeper wounds that linger. An owl hooted in the distance. He'll come looking, William said eventually. Elizabeth nodded. We can leave tomorrow. I won't let his anger fall on your house. William turned to her, resolve hardening his features. That's not what I meant. You need a safe place, and right now, this is it. Stay, at least until you decide your next steps. Elizabeth looked at him with doubt. Why would you risk it, especially knowing who he is? William thought of the frightened kids, Elizabeth's bravery in escaping, and his own past with Richard Reynolds. Maybe because some things are worth standing up for, he said simply. Or maybe I'm just stubborn. Elizabeth's lips curved into a faint smile, the first he'd seen from her. My mother would have called that righteous foolishness. My dad would have agreed, William replied, smiling back. They stood in silence, fireflies blinking around them, unaware that their shared pain had already forged a bond stronger than Richard's threats. Inside, the children slept peacefully, for the first time in a long while, safe in William Patterson's humble home. Morning sunlight filtered through the curtains as William quietly made breakfast. The rhythm of mixing batter and heating the griddle grounded him. When Elizabeth stepped into the kitchen, her hair still damp from a shower and wearing clothes Martha Grayson had dropped off, she smiled. I haven't slept this well in months. Can I help? William pointed to the coffee pot. Mugs are in that cabinet. They moved around the kitchen in easy silence. Elizabeth set the table while William flipped pancakes to a golden brown. When the kids came in, wide-eyed at the spread, something stirred in William's chest. Real maple syrup, Jackson proudly told the others. Dad and I made it. Matthew hesitated. Are we allowed to have some? The question revealed more than he realized. William smiled gently. As much as you want, buddy. Afterward, Elizabeth insisted on doing the dishes despite William's protests. I need to contribute, she said firmly. I'm not a charity case. William nodded. There's dignity in accepting help when you need it, and giving back when you can. Later, as Jackson gave the kids a tour of the workshop, Elizabeth wandered the living room. She paused at a photo of Sarah, her fingers tracing the glass. She was beautiful, she said softly. Yes, William replied, his voice filled with quiet grief. Cancer, 3 years ago. Jackson was 7. Elizabeth met his eyes, a new understanding dawning. So you get it, you've rebuilt a life too. William nodded. One day at a time. Children's laughter floated in through the window. He never let them laugh, Elizabeth said quietly. Everything had to be perfect, controlled, even their joy. William's expression hardened. Children should be children. I stayed too long, she whispered, guilt washing over her. Told myself it was for their safety, their future. William shook his head. But you left, that's what matters. As tears welled in her eyes, William instinctively reached out, then hesitated. She noticed. It's been a long time since a man's touch didn't make me flinch, she admitted. They shared a look of deep understanding before Emma ran in, dragging her mother to see the birdhouse Jackson was helping them build. That evening, while the children played a board game, William sat sketching something. What are you working on? Elizabeth asked. Just an idea. Teaching space. Figured you might want to learn some basics. She understood what he meant without him saying it. She needed skills to stand on her own. Why are you really helping us? She asked. William tapped his pencil, then said, because it's the right thing to do, and because everyone deserves a chance to start over. The next morning, William loaded lumber into his truck. Sheriff Davis pulled up in his patrol car. Morning, Will, he said. Heard you've got company. William nodded. Elizabeth and her kids needed a place. Davis raised an eyebrow. She seems out of place. Fancy manners. Might be running from something. William met his eyes. She is. Davis nodded grimly. That kind of trouble. Let me know if anything's off. He added that Clara would be sending over clothes. William noticed Elizabeth watching from the porch, tense. Sheriff Davis, he explained. Good man. His wife teaches at the school. He was asking about us, she said. Small towns notice newcomers, William replied, but they also protect their own. We're not their own, she murmured. You are now, he said simply. Throughout the day, neighbours came by with food, clothes and job offers. Elizabeth was overwhelmed by their kindness. They'll want something eventually, she whispered. That's not how it works here, William told her. They help because someday they might need help too. That night, while cooking together, Elizabeth asked what had been on her mind. Why stay here after what Richard did to you? You could have started over anywhere. William thought for a moment. This was Sarah's hometown. When she got sick, this community carried us. Jackson needs that kind of support, and there's honour in simple work, building something real. Just then, Jackson burst in, excited. Coach says Emma, Alice and Matthew can come to swim practice. Elizabeth tensed. I'm not sure. Please, Mom, Emma begged. Her voice was so hopeful. William stepped in. Let's all go. I could use a break from the shop. That night, as the stars emerged, William sat outside, listening to the quiet. Elizabeth joined him. In my old life, we had everything. Money, status. But my kids were scared in their own home. She hugged herself. I thought I was protecting them. What kind of mother does that make me? A survivor, William said without hesitation. And now a fighter. Their eyes met, bound by shared pain and newfound strength. Neither noticed the black car that slowly crept past the house, its driver hidden behind tinted windows, watching. At 2:17 a.m., a scream pierced the silence. William jumped from bed, racing toward the guest room. Elizabeth was sitting up, panic in her eyes, fists clenched in the sheets. Elizabeth, he said gently, you're safe. You're in Maple Creek, my house. Slowly her eyes cleared. I'm sorry, she murmured. The kids are still asleep, he reassured her. You didn't wake them. She looked down, ashamed. The nightmares, they come most nights. William leaned against the doorframe, keeping a respectful distance. Want some tea? It helps me when I can't sleep. In the warm kitchen light, she sipped chamomile tea, her breathing easing. In the dream, he found us. He was taking the kids away. I couldn't move. William nodded. Fear plays out in its own way. Do you get them too? She asked. Different ghosts, he said. Same torment. Sometimes I still reach for Sarah in my sleep. The honesty bridged the distance between them. How did you manage? She asked. One breath at a time, he said. First for Jackson, then eventually for me. Nights were hardest, when the silence is loudest. Elizabeth nodded. With Richard I was never alone, but always lonely. Watched, controlled. I still feel him sometimes. He's not here, William said firmly, and if he comes... As children splashed in the water and parents gathered beneath colourful umbrellas, Elizabeth sat quietly on the edge of a worn quilt, her gaze fixed on her kids with a deep, wistful awe. Alice and Matthew, alongside Jackson, were hard at work on intricate sandcastles, while Emma hesitantly waded into the lake with a group of local girls her age. It had been so long since she'd seen them like this, carefree, happy, normal. Lemonade? William offered, settling beside her with 2 plastic cups. Mrs. Miller's legendary recipe, secrets in the mint. Thank you, she said, accepting the drink as their fingers brushed gently. This all feels like a dream. Just weeks ago, the kids were in rigid piano classes and etiquette drills. Now they're barefoot, chasing tadpoles and earning scraped knees. William smiled. And which version of them seems happier? She didn't need to answer. Matthew's delighted squeal as Jackson taught him to skip stones said it all. A whistle blew as Coach Miller called the swim team to practice. Emma looked back at her mother, silently asking for permission. Elizabeth gave a small nod, and Emma's face lit up with a joy that caught even her by surprise. She's a natural, William said. Jackson swears she's faster than some of the kids who've been training all year. A swell of pride rose in Elizabeth. Richard never allowed team sports. They were too messy, too egalitarian. He only valued individual achievements, quantifiable and showcase-worthy. William leaned back, watching the children. Sometimes the best lessons come from being part of something bigger than yourself. Their peace was interrupted as Martha Grayson approached with a dish in hand. William Patterson, you've been holding out, she joked, then turned to Elizabeth. And your furniture sketches? Absolutely stunning. William showed me what you designed for the Millers. Elizabeth flushed. It's just a hobby. I studied design once before becoming a full-time mom. Well, Martha said warmly, you've got talent. Half the town's already asking if you take commissions. After she walked off, Elizabeth turned to William. You showed her my sketches? He shrugged, a little embarrassed. They're good, really good. Your designs, my hands, we could create something amazing. The sincerity in his voice left Elizabeth stunned. Richard had always dismissed her creativity as a distraction from her wifely duties. We're fitting in here, she murmured, watching Matthew collaborate with an elderly man on a sandcastle, using driftwood for flags. I never thought we'd feel at home so quickly. William met her gaze, suddenly serious. You were never meant to be someone's possession, Elizabeth. You and the kids deserve more. She looked away, unsettled by how true his words felt. This can't last forever, she said. Richard won't just let us vanish. William gently took her hand. Whatever happens, you won't face it alone. As the sun warmed their shoulders, Elizabeth felt the first sparks of belief that maybe he was right. 3 weeks later, William placed the final beam on the expanded workshop. The place, and his life, had transformed. Elizabeth's eye for design, combined with his carpentry, brought in more business than he'd seen in years. Laughter now filled the once quiet home. Need help? Sheriff Davis called from his cruiser. William climbed down from the ladder, noticing a strain in the sheriff's normally calm expression. What's wrong? Davis glanced toward the house, where Elizabeth and the children were baking. Got a call from the county clerk. Someone's poking around your property records. William felt a chill. Private investigator? Big city law firm. Reynolds and Associates, Davis confirmed. He found them, William said flatly. Seems likely, Davis said. But I've got eyes on the roads. You'll have a heads up. After the sheriff left, William stood motionless, mind racing. They needed a plan. The peaceful days had lulled them into a sense of security, but the threat was still out there. Inside, laughter echoed from the kitchen. Matthew sat on the counter, covered in flour. Alice arranged chocolate chips with precision, while Emma and Jackson debated cookie flavors. Elizabeth moved among them, smiling in a way he'd never seen before. He didn't want to break that. That night, after the children had gone to bed, William set an envelope on the table where Elizabeth was sketching. "What's this?" "Your share from the Henderson Commission," he said. "We're partners, remember?" Elizabeth stared at the money, the first she'd earned in nearly 10 years. "William, You can," he interrupted gently. "It's your designs that are bringing in these orders." She set the money aside, eyes misting. "I never thought I'd feel capable again." But the moment turned serious. William explained the sheriff's visit. "So he's found us," she whispered. "Not yet, but he's looking. We need to be ready." Elizabeth sat up straighter. The fragile part of her faded. The mother emerged. "We'll create safety plans, code words, meeting spots," William nodded. "Together." Later they sat on the porch, drafting a protocol under a starlit sky. "I won't let him take this from us," Elizabeth said firmly. "This life, their happiness." William reached for her hand. "Neither will I." Headlights appeared on a distant road, then turned away. Still, the tension remained. Over the next few days their anxiety grew. Slow-moving cars, strange hang-ups, an eerie sense of being watched. William upgraded security. Elizabeth prepared emergency bags and taught the kids safety routines masked as games. That night, thunder cracked over the valley. As Elizabeth tucked the kids in, Jackson turned to William. "Dad, I don't want them to leave." "We'll protect them, buddy." "If that bad man comes?" William hesitated. "We'll do our best." The storm raged fiercely. Power failed. Elizabeth joined William in the darkened living room. "They're asleep now," she said, sitting beside him. Jackson, too, though he'd never admit it. They sat in silence. Then her hand found his. "If Richard comes—" "When?" William corrected softly. "I want you to know, these weeks, they've been the most real thing I've felt in years." "For me, too," he said, gently tracing her palm. They leaned closer, but then a terrible smell hit them. Smoke. They bolted up. William opened the back door. Flames raced up the workshop's walls, spreading fast. "Accelerant," he said aloud. "It's not an accident." Elizabeth turned pale. "Get the kids," William ordered. "I'll handle this." She ran inside as William grabbed the extinguisher, but the fire was unstoppable. When the propane tank exploded, the blast hurled him backward. Through the smoke, he heard Alice scream. He rose, shoulder burning, and charged toward the house. From the trees, a dark figure watched with cold satisfaction. The sterile scent of the hospital brought William back to consciousness. Pain radiated from his body. William. Elizabeth's voice pulled him from the haze. He saw her face, exhausted, smudged with soot. Her hand hovered near his. "The children?" he rasped. "Safe," she said instantly. "Jackson's with Emma at the sheriff's. Alice and Matthew are with Mrs. Thompson." Relief swept through him. Memories flooded back. Flames carrying Matthew, running into smoke again and again. "The house?" he asked, though he knew the answer. "Gone," Elizabeth whispered. "Only the old oak remains." He closed his eyes in grief. "It was Richard," she said bitterly. "The sheriff found signs, accelerant, a professional job." "Coward," William muttered, "attacking children in their sleep." "You saved them," she said, her grip tightening. "The doctor said you shouldn't have been able to keep going back in, but you did." He didn't remember the pain, only the urgency, the need to save them all. Now he felt everything. At the window, fireflies flickered in the deepening dusk like tiny stars. In the distance, the glow of town lights shimmered. She could make out the steeple of the church and the library, the very place where her children had first fallen in love with books. With quiet resolve, she turned back to William, a new certainty in her gaze. "I choose this," she said clearly. "I choose us." The late September sun stretched shadows across what was left of William's land. Charred wood and warped metal marked where the house once stood, but today the ruins pulsed with new life. Dozens of town residents worked with purpose, turning wreckage into hope. Sheriff Davis had jokingly called it a barn raising, though they weren't building a barn. Workers from local businesses, tradespeople and volunteers had come together. Men from the lumberyard, electricians, plumbers, all offering their services freely. Women prepared meals, kids passed tools, and even the elderly watched from lawn chairs, shouting helpful advice. Elizabeth stood quietly, taking in the strength of her community. 3 months had passed since she'd refused Richard's settlement. 3 months of courtroom battles, restraining orders, and exhausting legal fights. Richard had used every weapon money could buy, but he hadn't expected Maple Creek to unite behind her. It's something, isn't it? William said, joining her. His burns had healed surprisingly well, though the scars remained visible when he rolled up his sleeves to help. I've never seen anything like it, Elizabeth admitted. All these people giving up their weekend. For us. For family, William corrected gently. That's how they see you now. She watched Emma help Mrs. Jenkins decorate lunch tables, her once shy daughter glowing with confidence. Alice and Matthew played with other kids, laughter spilling across the yard. Jackson worked alongside the men, gripping a smaller version of his father's tools, his posture proud. He's growing up so fast, she whispered. Too fast, William agreed, his voice full of emotion, but in all the right ways. A truck rolled in, carrying limestone for the foundation, paid for with the part of the settlement Richard couldn't touch. Elizabeth had insisted it be used to rebuild. I made a few changes to the plans, she said, handing over folded blueprints, if that's okay. William studied the revisions with growing admiration. She had enlarged the workshop, added a sunlit studio, and, most importantly, designed the house to fit all 6 of them, permanently. It's perfect, he murmured. Are you sure? It's your land. Your home. Our home, he corrected gently, his hand slipping into hers. Elizabeth nodded, her throat tight with emotion. Mayor Thompson walked over, wiping his forehead. Foundation team's ready when you are, Will. The cornerstone ceremony was simple but heartfelt. Surrounded by their children and neighbours, Sheriff Davis handed them a small metal box for keepsakes to be sealed into the foundation. One by one, the children added tokens, a wood carving from Jackson, a drawing from Emma, a shell from Alice, a treasured stone from Matthew. Elizabeth hesitated, then slipped in the diamond ring Richard had once used to trap her. For new beginnings, she whispered. William added a photo of Sarah smiling under her favourite oak. For remembering, he explained to the kids, who listened quietly. Once the box was sealed into the foundation, William turned to the crowd. Thank you isn't enough, but it's all we can offer. This home will always have an open door for anyone who helped rebuild it. Before they could continue, Mayor Thompson stepped forward. One last piece of business. He held out an official-looking document. The council met yesterday. We voted unanimously to name William Patterson as our new building inspector and safety commissioner. A ripple of applause passed through the crowd. About time someone honest took the job, old Mr. Jenkins called out. William was stunned. The very skills Richard had mocked were now the foundation of his new career. Later, Elizabeth found him standing beneath the old oak tree that had survived the fire. You deserve this, she said. So do you, he replied. So do they. Together they watched their children play among the construction site, already claiming the future as their own. It wouldn't be perfect, but it would be theirs, built one stone at a time. By early November, Maple Creek glowed in autumn gold. The new Patterson house, smaller than Elizabeth's old estate, stood nearly finished, its wide porch and warm wood exterior radiating a kind of comfort her old mansion never had. Today was a special day, though not a housewarming exactly. William had planned something and asked everyone to meet at noon. Elizabeth watched from the kitchen window as the kids helped William dig a large hole in the side yard. Whatever he had planned clearly had their full support. All set? She asked, stepping outside with hot cider. Just about, William said, wiping dirt from his face and pointing to a burlap-wrapped object near the shed. That's the last piece. By midday, half the town had arrived. Sheriff Davis, Mayor Thompson, teachers, shopkeepers, all gathered in a loose circle. William stepped forward. Thank you all for coming, he began. When our home burned, we didn't just lose a building. We lost a piece of our lives. But we've gained something greater, a new family. He unveiled a small oak sapling. This tree comes from the woods where Sarah and I once walked, where Jackson took his first steps. Today we plant it not to replace what we lost, but to honor what we've found. One by one, the children helped plant the tree. Then William handed Elizabeth a small carved box. What is it? She asked. Open it. Inside were 5 wooden hearts, each engraved with their names. I made these at night, William said, a promise to stay rooted, together. Elizabeth knelt beside the sapling and placed the box among its roots. The children added soil. William secured the young tree. Mayor Thompson stepped forward. I propose we name this the Promise Tree, a reminder that not all vows need paper to be binding. Applause and quiet tears followed. Later, Elizabeth joined William at the tree. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" he asked. "For showing us that family isn't built from perfection, but from love and intention. For giving my children roots when they thought they only had wings." William took her hand. "Some things are meant to grow together," he said, glancing at the kids. "I think we're one of them." A year after the fire, the Patterson home basked in spring sunshine. The promise tree had sprouted its first green leaves and wildflowers bloomed around it. Inside, William set the table he had made by hand. Each chair bore a personal touch: a bird for Emma, baseball bats for Jackson, flowers for Alice, superhero symbols for Matthew. "Need help?" Sheriff Davis asked, arriving with his wife Clara and dishes. "All under control," William replied, though his nerves suggested otherwise. Elizabeth and the girls were finishing up in the workshop, now the heart of their growing family business, crafted with love. Her designs and his craftsmanship had drawn national attention. Orders now came from cities like Seattle and Boston. Jackson, now 11 and proudly filling his role as big brother, came downstairs with a large package. "Is it time yet?" he asked. "Almost," William smiled. "Help your brother with his tie." Elizabeth walked in, ponytail back, a wood stain on her cheek. "The girls are just finishing," she said. "Everything looks beautiful." William reached out, wiping her cheek. "Just like its designer." She smiled. "Nervous?" "A little," he admitted. "It's not every day you make a family official." The past year had been full of trials, but also triumph. Richard had dropped his custody battle when his own legal troubles grew. A final settlement allowed supervised contact only. The storm had passed. Today wasn't just about a house or a business. Today, William and Elizabeth would announce something much more permanent.